can have the same bus driver driving two buses, and therefore you achieve an efficiency.
Yeah, you see, that's the kind of example they always cite. Of course, you can't have two bus drivers driving the same bus, or one bus driver driving two buses, or whatever. But, we'll talk just a couple of minutes here about all the suits and consultants and spin doctors and lawyers. And my God, over there, it's not to do with the bus drivers driving two buses at a time. I don't mind the price of a good or a service going up, either because you have demonstrated unavoidable cost increases and at the same time solid efficiency. So even when your costs are going up, you're being as efficient as you can. Or because the price of a good or service is increasing because you're getting more and paying more for it. If the price of a jar of peanut butter goes up because the jar is getting bigger, I don't have a problem with that. So if the TTC dramatically increased service or said that building, for example, the new York University subway would require a fare increase with accountability so that we could see where the money actually went, I wouldn't be as troubled by that. But what we seemed to get in recent years was this. Lots of cost increases and boondoggles without any premium at all being placed on operating efficiency and on-time, on-budget performance, paid for by one fare increase after another. And it's really easy to run a place if you don't have to focus on efficiency, on budget, on time, and so on. And you can just keep asking the people who use the service to pay, and they have no choice. But I'm worried that the culture, the whole attitude over there, the old way at the TTC, really hasn't been addressed. So they think they can just keep on charging more when service, especially customer service, hasn't yet been improved, and where seemingly little to no effort has been made to rein in the high-priced help, the consultants, the over-budget boondoggles, and that whole list of stuff. They can't afford to keep running bus routes, often serving lower-income working people who don't have cars, but they do have the money to hire two new HR staff at $100,000 a pop to deal with workplace violence. The executive branch of that very same TTC gets a 7% increase in its budget, $5.5 million increase for unspecified maintenance on IT projects. You know that's a boondoggle lurking in there somewhere. And it gets worse as you look forward. Overtime projected for the year ahead, $27 million. You can't tell me, because I've run a big organization, there is no opportunity to reduce that even by, say, 10%. It's the number I always cite. Just by having things more efficiently run, by changing the rules a little bit. You'd have to have some cooperation from the union, but it could save $3 million, close, plus or minus, if you save that 10%. Wheel-trans rides operated by TTC employees cost $50 each on average, the blended cost. The ones offered by the private sector cost $30. Now, I completely understand that the wheel-trans ones done by the TTC have those special vehicles you see on the streets, and that not every person can be accommodated by the private sector suppliers. But you can't mean to tell me that the $20 million discrepancy, which is what exists between the rides offered by the TTC employees and the ones done by the private sector, that somewhere in between 0 and 20 million, that there aren't some efficiencies that could be achieved by looking at ways the private sector does things and trying to do things more efficiently. Councillor Denzil Minnan Wong, who's a very capable, smart guy, he's quoted as saying that the place needs a good going over from the bottom up and the top down. Do they ever, and is Councillor Denzil Minnan Wong ever right about that? I supported the increased emphasis placed on transit by David Miller when he was the mayor. And he did get some more money, quite a bit more, from the province and from the feds. However, he also allowed a culture to be created over there with his sidekick, Adam Giambroni, where any hiring, any spending, any budget excess was okay simply because we just passed the cost on to the poor old riders and simply because it was transit after all. So anything they do over there at the TTC is fine. And typical of that kind of culture, the management will propose route cuts, which you've seen being debated the last few days, long before they will ever look at the swollen ranks of their own management. No, we couldn't possibly do without any two people filling that entire office building and about 12 more up there around Davisville and Yonge. We've got to cut routes instead. So I say to you folks, Let Denzil Minnan Wong at this. Let some smart business people at this. Let me at it. I've offered before. Notice they never phoned me to say, yeah, come on up and help us out here. Let me at this. Let Bob Kinnear give us some ideas. He's the union president, but you know what? I've said this before. The frontline people often have the best ideas on how you can save money because they see some of the ridiculous practices and policies and consultants and bag carriers and lawyers and PR advisors and so on that are hired in instead of investing the money on the front lines. It's better to do that than to say it's either a fair increase or a root cut. There's nothing in between. There are no efficiencies to be achieved. That, to me, my friends, is a false choice that covers up incompetence and bad management, and it's an old attitude, and it's got to go. I'm talking about efficiencies here and stopping with the wasting of our money on 724 people that make more than $100,000, half of whom are developing business cases and doing PR and things like that. It's just not right. Rather than presenting just root cuts or a fair increase, maybe we could talk about running the place better and not having these gigantic cost overruns and boondoggles and huge increases in staff, because I believe there is money to be found there that would avoid a fair increase and avoid route cuts at the same time. I mean, if there's a route that just has nobody at all ever traveling on it or whatever, well then fine, maybe you have to look at that. You can never leave things exactly the same. But I'm not talking about cut. Not at all. I'm talking about efficiencies to avoid cuts, but also avoid a fare increase. Half the time, actually, service can get better when you do it more efficiently, as opposed to getting worse because you simply cut things. That's why I'm saying the false choice that TTC management are offering us now is either a fare increase or a cut. Nothing in between. There's no, let's just do the job better for the same money. That never could be an objective. That would involve far too much creativity and hard work.